Most people who decide to get in shape set themselves one very specific goal: lose weight. They step on the scale every morning, watch the number go up and down, and use that single data point to judge whether they're succeeding or failing. But here's the thing: weight loss and fat loss are not the same thing. And confusing the two is one of the most common reasons people feel like they're doing everything right and still not seeing the results they actually want. Let's start with what the scale is actually measuring. Your body weight at any given moment is the sum of everything inside you: fat, muscle, bone, water, the food sitting in your digestive system, glycogen stored in your muscles and liver, and even the air in your lungs. All of it. So when the scale goes down overnight, it doesn't mean you lost fat. It might mean you sweated during sleep, you hadn't eaten yet, or your body used up some stored carbohydrates. And when the scale goes up, it doesn't mean you gained fat. You might have eaten a salty meal, started a new training program that causes your muscles to retain water, or simply had a bigger meal the night before. This is why the scale can go down, and your body can still look worse. Imagine someone who cuts calories drastically, doesn't eat enough protein, and doesn't do any resistance training. They lose weight, sure, but a significant portion of that weight is muscle mass. They end up lighter on the scale, but softer, less defined, and with a slower metabolism than before. That's not the outcome anyone is actually aiming for. Now flip it around. Imagine someone who eats at a moderate calorie deficit, hits their protein targets every day, and trains consistently with weights. The scale might barely move for weeks, but underneath the surface they're losing fat and building or preserving muscle at the same time. Their clothes fit differently, their body looks more defined, their strength is going up. The number on the scale doesn't capture any of that. This is the core of what body recomposition is really about: shifting the composition of your body, not just reducing the number on a scale. And to do that well, there are a few non-negotiable pillars. First, you need a calorie deficit. Not aggressive, not extreme, but consistent enough to create the conditions for fat loss without destroying muscle. Second, you need sufficient protein, because protein is what your body uses to hold on to and build lean tissue even while you're in a deficit. Third, training matters, particularly resistance training, which sends the signal to your body to preserve and develop muscle, even as you're losing fat. Fourth, tracking gives you real data, because without measuring food intake and monitoring body composition over time, you're essentially flying blind. And fifth, patience. Body recomposition is slower than crash dieting. It doesn't produce dramatic scale drops week over week, but the results are real, they're lasting, and they actually change the way your body looks and functions. So before you obsess over the number on the scale tomorrow morning, ask yourself, is that actually the change you want? Or do you want to lose fat, keep your muscle, and build a body that reflects the work you're putting in? Because those are different goals, and they require different approaches. Most body transformations start the same way. Someone stands in front of a mirror, or maybe steps off a scale, and the thought forms clearly: I want to lose weight. It's one of the most common goals people set for themselves, and it makes complete sense on the surface. Weight is simple. Weight is a number. And numbers feel like facts. There's something deeply reassuring about a single digit staring back at you every morning. You step on the scale, you get a number, and your brain immediately interprets that as objective truth. No guesswork, no ambiguity. The scale doesn't have moods. It doesn't sugarcoat anything. It just tells you. And so it becomes a ritual for millions of people. Every morning, before eating, before drinking anything, sometimes before getting fully dressed, the scale. That one number sets the tone for the entire day. If it's down, you feel like you're winning. If it's up, you feel like you failed. If it stayed the same, you feel stuck. The number carries enormous emotional weight, no pun intended, because we've decided it represents progress, or the absence of it. It feels objective. It feels clean. It feels like the truth. But here's the problem, and it's a significant one. The scale doesn't actually tell you what you lost, or what you gained. It tells you the total mass of your body at a single moment in time. That includes your muscles, your bones, your organs, your fat, the water in your tissues, the food currently moving through your digestive system, the clothes you might still be wearing, and dozens of other variables that shift constantly throughout the day, throughout the week, and throughout the month. When the scale goes down, it's tempting to assume that means fat is gone. But that's not necessarily what happened. You might have lost water. You might be slightly dehydrated. You might have had a lower sodium day yesterday. You might have gone to the bathroom before weighing yourself. Any one of these things, none of which have anything to do with actual fat loss, can move that number. And when the scale goes up, the same logic applies in reverse. A tough workout can cause your muscles to retain water as part of the repair process, temporarily increasing your weight even while your body is actively getting leaner and stronger. A salty meal, a hormonal shift, a night of poor sleep, all of these can add pounds to the scale that will be gone within days. But in the moment, they feel like devastating setbacks. This is the critical distinction that changes everything. Weight loss and fat loss are not the same thing. Weight loss simply means the number on the scale went down. Fat loss means your body specifically reduced the amount of stored fat it's carrying. One is a measurement. The other is a meaningful biological change. When most people say they want to lose weight, what they actually mean, what they're actually picturing, is fat loss. They want to look leaner. They want their clothes to fit differently. They want to feel lighter and more capable in their bodies. But by tracking weight instead of fat, they're measuring the wrong thing and setting themselves up to misread every signal their body sends them. Understanding this difference isn't just a technical detail. It fundamentally changes how you approach the whole process, what you measure, what you celebrate, what you worry about, and what you ignore. And that shift in perspective is where real, lasting progress actually begins. Here's something that might surprise you. A lower number on the scale isn't always good news. And that's not a pessimistic take. It's just the reality of what the scale can and cannot tell you. When you step on the scale and the number goes down, all you're seeing is that your total body weight has decreased. But here's the critical question the scale simply cannot answer. Which tissue did you actually lose? Because weight loss and fat loss are not the same thing. Not even close. Let's say you're down 1 kilogram this week. That 1 kilogram could have come from several very different places, and the source matters enormously. First, it could be fat. That's the tissue you actually want to lose. It's the goal. But fat loss is a relatively slow process, and it rarely accounts for the full drop you see on the scale, especially early on. It could also be muscle. And this is where things get concerning. Muscle is the tissue you want to keep. It's what gives your body shape. It supports your metabolism, and it keeps you strong. Losing muscle while thinking you're losing fat is one of the most common and most frustrating mistakes in any weight loss journey. Then there's water. Your body holds onto and releases water constantly, influenced by how much sodium you've eaten, where you are in your hormonal cycle, how hydrated you are, and a dozen other factors. A big drop on the scale after a salty meal or a stressful week is often almost entirely water. Next up is glycogen. Glycogen is essentially the stored form of carbohydrates in your muscles and liver. When you eat fewer carbs, your body burns through these stores. And here's the thing, glycogen holds water with it. So when glycogen drops, water drops with it. That can show up as a significant drop on the scale. But the moment you eat carbs again, it comes right back. It's not fat loss, it's just your carb stores refilling. And finally, there's what we might call just less food, meaning your digestive system is simply emptier than it was when you last weighed yourself. An empty stomach and digestive tract can weigh noticeably less than a full one. That weight comes back with your next meal. So when you look at that number on the scale, whether it went up, down, or stayed the same, you're looking at the combined result of all of these factors mixed together. The scale adds them all up into one single number and hands it to you with zero context. This is exactly why the distinction between weight loss and fat loss is so important. You can lose weight without losing much fat at all. And on the flip side, you can be doing everything right for fat loss and see the scale barely move, because water or glycogen or muscle is masking the progress. The scale will never answer the question of what you actually lost. That's something you have to dig deeper to understand. Through body composition tracking, through how your clothes fit, through strength and energy levels, and through consistency over time. The number is just a data point. Context is everything. Here's a concept that trips up a lot of people, and it's one of the most important distinctions in fitness: weight loss versus fat loss. They sound like the same thing. They are absolutely not the same thing. Imagine two people, same starting weight, same scale, same goal. After a few weeks, they both step on that scale and get a reading. But what's actually happened inside their bodies could not be more different. Let's look at outcome A first. The scale drops 5 kilograms. On paper, that sounds like a win. But look a little closer. The body looks softer, not leaner. The waist looks about the same. Strength has collapsed in the gym. Energy is lower. What actually happened here? Most of what was lost was muscle, water, and glycogen, not fat. The scale went down, but the mirror is telling a different story. And that's where the frustration comes in. That feeling of, I worked hard, I lost weight, so why don't I like how I look? That's outcome A. Now look at outcome B. The scale barely moved. Maybe a kilogram, maybe nothing. Someone watching the number on the scale would call this a failure. But look at what actually changed. The body looks more athletic. The waist is smaller. Strength is up in training. Energy is better. Why? Because this person lost fat and kept their muscle. The number on the scale didn't budge much, but the composition of their body shifted in exactly the right direction. Less fat, more muscle relative to total weight, and the result is visible, tangible, and functional. That's the person who looks in the mirror and thinks, I actually look like I trained. This is the trap the scale sets for us. It measures everything: fat, muscle, water, food in your stomach, the weight of your bones, all of it lumped into one number. It cannot tell you what you actually lost or what you actually kept. It would look at outcome A and call it a success. It would look at outcome B and call it a failure or a plateau. And it would be wrong on both counts. So when the scale doesn't move, that isn't automatically bad news. And when the scale drops quickly, that isn't automatically good news. What matters is what's actually changing in your body composition, the ratio of fat to muscle. That's the thing worth tracking, and that's the thing worth optimizing for. Because the goal was never just to be lighter. The goal was to look and feel and perform better. And those things don't always show up on a scale. 2 words: weight loss and fat loss. They sound like they mean the same thing, and most people use them interchangeably. But they don't mean the same thing at all. And if you confuse them, you can spend years chasing the wrong outcome without ever realizing it. Let's start with weight loss, because that's the one most people are familiar with. Weight loss simply means the number on the scale goes down. That's it. That's the entire definition. The scale reads a lower number today than it did yesterday, or last week, or last month. But here's the thing. That number tells you absolutely nothing about what you actually lost. Did you lose fat? Maybe. Did you lose muscle? Possibly. Did you lose water? Probably some of that too. Did you lose the contents of your digestive system? Sure, that counts on a scale. The scale doesn't discriminate. It measures everything. Every pound of fat, every pound of muscle, every ounce of water, every gram of food sitting in your stomach. All of it. And when that total number goes down, we call it weight loss. So someone could fast for 2 days, barely eat anything, lose 4 pounds on the scale, and most of that could be water and muscle. Technically, that's weight loss. But is it the outcome they actually wanted? Almost certainly not. Now let's talk about fat loss, because this is the definition that actually matters. Fat loss means you are specifically reducing the amount of body fat you're carrying, while at the same time preserving as much muscle as possible. That second part is critical. It's not just about losing fat. It's about keeping the lean tissue, the muscle, the metabolically active tissue that gives your body its shape and function. This is what's called body composition. And body composition is the actual change you were probably after when you said you wanted to lose weight. You didn't really want to just see a smaller number. You wanted to look leaner. You wanted to feel stronger. You wanted your clothes to fit differently. You wanted your body to actually change, not just become a lighter version of the same thing. Here's why this distinction is so important in practice. 2 people can weigh exactly the same, let's say 170 pounds. and look completely different because their body composition is different. One person might carry 30% of that weight as fat. Another person might carry 15% as fat. Same scale number, completely different bodies. And on the flip side, two people can both lose 20 pounds, same weight loss on paper, but have dramatically different results. One person followed an approach that burned mostly fat while preserving muscle. The other person lost a mix of fat, muscle, and water. One looks lean and defined. The other looks smaller but softer. Same weight loss. Completely different outcomes. This is why the scale is such a limited and often misleading tool. It measures weight. It does not measure fat. It does not measure muscle. It gives you one number when what you actually need is a picture of your body composition. So going forward, when we talk about the goal, we're talking about fat loss, not just weight loss. We want to reduce body fat. We want to keep muscle. We want to shift the composition of the body in a meaningful way. The scale might go down. It might fluctuate. It might even go up temporarily as muscle develops. None of that is the story. The story is what's happening to your body fat and your muscle mass. That's the change that actually matters. Let's talk about something a lot of people have lived through: the crash diet. You pick a number on the scale, you cut your food way down, you add a ton of cardio, and you grind it out for weeks. And then, 6 weeks later, the scale shows you're 10 kilograms lighter. That sounds like a win. But here's the uncomfortable part. You stand in front of the mirror, and you still don't like what you see. That feeling is real, and it's not just in your head. There's a very specific reason it happens, and it comes down to a crucial difference that most people never learn: the difference between weight loss and fat loss. They are not the same thing, not even close. When you crash diet, eating very little and doing a lot of cardio, your body loses weight fast, yes. The scale moves quickly, but what exactly is it losing? This is where most people are surprised to find out the truth. The majority of that rapid weight loss is water. When you cut carbohydrates dramatically, your body burns through its glycogen stores. That's the stored form of carbohydrate in your muscles and liver. And glycogen holds a significant amount of water with it. So when glycogen goes, water goes. Fast. That accounts for a big chunk of those early kilos dropping off. Then there's muscle. When you're under-eating and overdoing cardio, your body doesn't have enough fuel coming in, and it starts breaking down muscle tissue to use for energy. This is called muscle catabolism, and it's a major problem because muscle is exactly what gives your body shape, definition, and strength. And yes, some fat is lost too, but far less than the number on the scale would suggest. So what you end up with is a body that is smaller, but not more defined. Lighter, but not stronger. You lost weight technically, but you did not build a better body. The physical structure underneath, the muscle, the tone, the shape, that didn't improve. In some cases, it actually got worse because you lost muscle along with the fat. This is the crash diet trap. People confuse the movement of the scale with progress. They see that number drop and they think the mission is accomplished. But the mirror tells a different story, and that's because the mirror shows body composition, the ratio of fat to muscle, not just total weight. A person who loses 10 kilograms through a crash diet and a person who loses 5 kilograms through smart training and proper nutrition can look completely different, with the latter looking significantly leaner and more defined despite losing less total weight. That's the power of understanding fat loss versus weight loss. Fat loss means you're specifically targeting stored body fat while preserving, or even building, lean muscle mass. That requires a different approach entirely. It requires eating enough protein, training with resistance, and creating a modest calorie deficit rather than an extreme one. The goal isn't just to be lighter. The goal is to look and feel better, to be stronger, to have a body that functions well and reflects the work you've put in. Crash dieting delivers a smaller version of your current body. Proper fat loss delivers a transformed one. And that distinction changes everything about how you should approach your health and fitness journey. Let's take a moment to reframe what we're actually going after here, because this distinction matters more than most people realize. When most people say they want to lose weight, what they're really picturing isn't just a smaller number on the scale. They're picturing a better-looking, better-functioning body. They want to feel leaner, look more defined, move with more strength and control. But here's the problem. The goal of losing weight doesn't actually describe that. It just describes getting smaller. And smaller isn't always better. What we're really talking about is a completely different target: better body composition. Body composition means the ratio of fat to muscle in your body. And when you shift your focus there, everything changes. Instead of asking, "How much do I weigh?" you start asking more meaningful questions. How much of what I'm carrying is fat, and how much is lean muscle tissue? Because those two things have completely different effects on how you look, how you feel, and how you perform. Let's break down what that actually looks like in practice. First, less fat. Not less of everything, not less muscle, not less bone density, not less water weight that comes back in 2 days. Specifically, less stored body fat. That's the target. Second, more visible muscle. When you reduce fat and preserve or build muscle, your body starts to show shape and definition that was always there but hidden. This is what people usually mean when they say they want to tone up. It's not about building massive muscle. It's about revealing the structure that's already underneath. Third, better strength. As your body composition improves, your functional capacity improves too. You become more capable in the gym, in daily life, in any physical activity you care about. Fourth, better shape and better proportion. This is something the scale literally cannot measure. You can be the same weight but look completely different depending on where that weight is coming from. Two people at the same number on the scale can have dramatically different body shapes based on their muscle-to-fat ratio. Proportion isn't about a number. It's about density, definition, and how your body is structured. And fifth, better control. Knowing what your body is doing and why. Understanding how food, training, sleep, and stress all interact to change your composition over time. That kind of body literacy is powerful. It takes you out of the cycle of guessing and reacting, and puts you in a place where you can actually make informed decisions. Now here's why this reframe matters so much. The process for achieving fat loss is genuinely, fundamentally different from the process for achieving weight loss. Eat less, weigh less is a weight loss approach. Cut calories dramatically, the scale goes down, sometimes quickly. But what's actually being lost? Often it's a combination of fat, muscle, and water. And losing muscle is the last thing you want because muscle is metabolically active tissue. It's what gives you shape, strength, and a metabolism that works for you rather than against you. Fat loss is a more precise, more strategic process. It involves eating enough of the right things to preserve muscle while creating the right conditions for fat to be burned. It involves training in a way that gives your body a reason to hold on to lean tissue. It involves consistency over time, not a dramatic short-term drop followed by an equally dramatic rebound. The scale can show you total mass, but it can't show you shape. It can't show you density. It can't show you definition. It can't tell you whether what you lost was fat or muscle, and it can't tell you whether what you gained was strength or just water. So when we talk about the goal here, we're talking about something more specific, more meaningful, and ultimately more achievable than just losing weight. We're talking about building a body that performs better, looks better, and that you actually understand. That's fat loss, not weight loss. Most people think about their health journey in terms of one simple number, the number on the scale. But that number is hiding an enormous amount of complexity, and once you understand what's actually behind it, you'll never look at your weight the same way again. Your body weight is not a single thing. It's the sum of 9 separate components, each one fluctuating constantly throughout the day, the week, and across different seasons of your life. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Only one of those 9 components is the thing you actually want to change when you're trying to get healthier. Just one. Let's walk through all 9. First, fat mass. This is the stored body fat, the adipose tissue distributed across your body. This is genuinely what most people are trying to reduce. It's metabolically active. It responds to sustained caloric deficit over time, and it's what we're actually targeting when we talk about fat loss. Second, muscle mass. Muscle is dense, heavy tissue. When people lose weight rapidly, a significant portion of that loss can come from muscle, which is the last thing you want. Muscle is your metabolic engine. It burns calories at rest, it supports your joints, and it keeps you functional and strong. Third, water. This one is huge, and it's probably the biggest source of confusion for anyone tracking their weight day to day. Your body holds water in your tissues, your blood, your muscles, your skin. Water weight can shift by 1, 2, even 3 kilograms in a single day based on what you ate, how much you exercised, how hydrated you are, and even where you are in your hormonal cycle. Fourth, glycogen. Glycogen is stored carbohydrate. It lives primarily in your liver and your muscles, and it holds onto water. Every gram of glycogen holds roughly 3 to 4 grams of water with it. When you cut carbohydrates, glycogen drops fast, and so does the water attached to it. That's why low-carb diets produce dramatic early-scale results. It's mostly glycogen and water leaving, not fat. And when you eat carbs again, it comes right back. Fifth, bone. Your skeletal structure has mass. It doesn't change dramatically on a week-to-week basis, but bone density can shift over years based on nutrition, exercise, hormones, and age. Sixth, organs. Your heart, your liver, your kidneys, your lungs, they all have mass. Organ size and density can shift with health conditions, inflammation, or significant body composition changes, but generally they're a fairly stable contribution to your total weight. Seventh, food volume. The physical content of your digestive tract, everything you've eaten and drunk that hasn't yet been absorbed or excreted, adds weight. A large meal with plenty of fluids can add a kilogram or more temporarily. This is why weighing yourself after a big dinner versus first thing in the morning produces completely different numbers. Eighth, inflammation. When your body is inflamed, from intense exercise, from illness, from stress, from certain foods, it retains extra fluid as part of the immune response. This shows up on the scale as added weight. A brutal workout can leave you heavier the next morning even though you burned hundreds of calories. And ninth, salt balance. Sodium drives fluid retention. A salty meal pulls water into your bloodstream and tissues and can add significant water weight within hours. Conversely, sweating out salt or eating lower sodium foods can cause rapid fluid loss. So here's the critical distinction this slide is making. Weight loss and fat loss are not the same thing. Weight loss is any reduction in that combined total of all 9 components. Fat loss is specifically the reduction of fat mass. You can lose weight without losing fat. You can lose fat without the scale showing much movement. And you can gain fat while your weight stays the same if you're simultaneously losing muscle. The scale is a blunt instrument. It tells you the sum of everything, but it can't tell you the composition. That's why chasing the number alone often leads to frustration, crash dieting, and muscle loss. The real goal, the meaningful goal, is fat loss. And that requires understanding that the scale is only part of the picture. Here's something worth understanding if you've ever stepped on the scale, seen a number you didn't expect, and felt your whole day shift because of it. The daily number on the scale lies. Or at least, it doesn't tell you the whole story. There's a really important distinction between weight loss and fat loss. Weight can move around dramatically from one day to the next, sometimes by 2, 3, even 5 pounds, without any real change in your body fat. So what's actually going on? Most of those day-to-day fluctuations come down to 4 things: water, glycogen, food still in your digestive system, and where your body is in its recovery process. None of those are fat. Let's break them down. First, carbohydrates. When you eat more carbs, your muscles store more glycogen. That's essentially the stored form of glucose your body uses for energy. Here's the catch. For every single gram of glycogen your body stores, it pulls in roughly 3 grams of water to go along with it. So after a higher carb day, you might weigh noticeably more on the scale the next morning. That number is heavier, yes, but there's no added fat. Your muscles are just fuller and more fueled. Second, salt. Sodium directly influences your body's water balance. Eat a saltier meal. Maybe you ate out. Maybe it was just a higher sodium day. And your body holds onto more water to balance things out. You can be the exact same person with the exact same amount of body fat, and the number on the scale can shift within hours just because of sodium intake. Same body, different number. Third, sleep and stress. This one catches a lot of people off guard. When you sleep poorly or go through a stressful day, your body produces more cortisol. Cortisol promotes water retention, so you wake up after a rough night feeling puffy, step on the scale, and the number is up, not because you gained fat, but because your hormones responded to stress. A stressful day can genuinely produce a heavier weigh-in the next morning. And fourth, hard training. If you've had an intense workout, especially resistance training or something that really challenged your muscles, those muscles experience microscopic damage as part of the adaptation process. Your body responds with a mild inflammatory response to repair them, and that inflammation holds extra water in the muscle tissue. This can last a day or two. So the morning after a really hard session, you might actually weigh more, not less. That's not a bad sign. That's your body doing exactly what it's supposed to do. So what does all of this mean practically? It means the scale is a tool, not a judge. It gives you data, and data is only useful when you understand what it's measuring. A single morning weigh-in doesn't tell you whether your fat loss efforts are working. It tells you where your weight happens to be at that moment, influenced by a dozen variables that have nothing to do with fat. The real mistake people make is attaching emotion to that number, feeling defeated when it's up, euphoric when it's down, and then making decisions based on a one-day snapshot. That's like judging whether a business is thriving based on 1 hour of sales. Track trends over time. Look at weekly or monthly averages. Notice patterns. The scale can absolutely be a useful part of your toolkit, but only when you stop treating one morning's number as a verdict on your progress. When it comes to actually losing fat while keeping your muscle, there are 3 pillars that work together, and the key word here is together, because dropping even one of them shifts you from true fat loss back into generic weight loss, which is a very different outcome. Let's walk through each one. The first pillar is a calorie deficit. This is the non-negotiable. Your body has to use more energy than you're taking in. That's the fundamental condition for fat loss to occur at all. Without it, nothing else matters. But here's the critical part that most people miss. The deficit has to be controlled, not extreme. When people slash their calories dramatically, yes, they lose weight fast, but a significant portion of that is muscle tissue. The body starts cannibalizing itself. A moderate, sustainable deficit keeps fat loss happening while giving the other 2 pillars room to do their job. The second pillar is protein. Protein is the muscle protector. When you're in a calorie deficit, your body is under pressure to find energy wherever it can. Protein intake sends a clear signal. Keep the muscle tissue. It's being used and maintained. High protein intake essentially raises the cost of breaking down muscle, making fat a more attractive fuel source by comparison. And there's a bonus here. Protein is highly satiating. It helps you feel full, makes the diet far easier to follow over weeks and months, and reduces the likelihood of falling off the plan. This isn't a minor detail. Adherence is everything in a long-term fat loss effort. The third pillar is resistance training, and this is the shape keeper. A lot of people default to cardio when they want to lose weight, and cardio absolutely has value. It burns calories, it supports cardiovascular health, but cardio alone doesn't tell your body what tissue to preserve. Lifting weights does. When you're regularly putting your muscles under load, you're sending a direct signal to your body that says, this muscle is needed, keep it. Without that signal, in a calorie deficit, your body has very little reason not to break muscle down alongside fat. This is really the heart of the weight loss versus fat loss distinction. Weight loss just means the number on the scale goes down, and it can go down because you're losing water, muscle, bone density, or fat. Fat loss specifically means you're losing body fat while retaining, or even building, lean muscle tissue. The result looks and feels completely different. The body composition is different. The metabolism holds up better. The physique has shape and structure rather than just being a smaller version of the same soft body. All 3 pillars work together because they each cover a different piece of the puzzle. The calorie deficit creates the condition for fat loss. Protein protects the tissue you want to keep. And resistance training provides the biological signal that justifies keeping it. Remove any one of these, and the system starts to break down. Pillar 1 is the calorie deficit, and the key idea here is that it needs to be strong enough to work, but not so strong that it breaks you. This is one of the most misunderstood parts of any fat loss effort. When people decide they want to lose weight, the instinct is usually to go as hard as possible, cut calories dramatically, lose weight as fast as they can. And on the surface, that logic makes sense. Faster progress is better progress, right? Not necessarily. Not when we're talking about body composition. There's an important distinction on this slide between weight loss and fat loss. These two things are not the same, and confusing them is where a lot of people go wrong. Let's start with what happens when the deficit is too aggressive. Yes, the number on the scale drops faster, but what's actually being lost? When you cut calories too severely, especially without the right training and protein intake, a significant portion of what you lose isn't fat, it's muscle. And losing muscle is the last thing we want. Muscle is what gives the body its shape. It's what keeps your metabolism working efficiently. And once you lose it, getting it back takes a long time. Beyond muscle loss, an overly aggressive deficit tends to create a cascade of other problems. Fatigue sets in, energy levels drop, sleep quality suffers, and when you're tired and underfueled, your training performance takes a hit, which means you're no longer giving your body the signal it needs to hold onto muscle in the first place. Then there's the psychological and behavioral side. When the deficit is too steep, hunger becomes hard to manage. Willpower gets depleted. People white-knuckle it for a few weeks, then the diet breaks down entirely. And when they return to normal eating, sometimes through a binge, sometimes just through losing motivation, the weight comes back, often with interest. That cycle of aggressive dieting and rebounding is exhausting, and it's extremely common. Now contrast that with a controlled deficit. The scale might move a little more slowly, and that can feel frustrating if you're used to the dramatic early drops you see on crash diets. But here's what's actually happening inside your body. Muscle is being protected because you're training and eating enough protein to give your body a reason to hold on to it. Energy levels stay high enough to actually train hard. Hunger is present. You're in a deficit after all. But it's manageable. You're not fighting yourself every single day. And critically, a controlled deficit is repeatable. It's something you can sustain for months, not just days or weeks. That consistency is where real, lasting change happens. This point becomes especially important for two groups of people. First, anyone over the age of 40, where preserving muscle mass becomes physiologically more challenging and more important. And second, anyone who isn't a complete beginner to training, because if you've already built some fitness, protecting that investment matters. The bottom line here is simple. Slower on the scale almost always means better on the body. A controlled calorie deficit isn't the cautious option or the soft option. It's the smarter one, the one that actually gets you where you want to go and keeps you there. When it comes to losing body fat and actually keeping the results, protein is arguably the most important tool in your nutrition plan. It's the signal that tells your body your muscle is worth keeping. Here's why that matters. When you're in a calorie deficit, meaning you're eating less than your body burns, your body has less available energy to work with. And when energy is scarce, the body starts making decisions about what to hold on to and what to let go of. Without enough protein in your diet and without the right kind of training, your body has very little reason to preserve your muscle tissue. It may start breaking it down for fuel instead. That's the difference between losing fat and losing weight. And we'll come back to that distinction in a moment. Protein does several important things at once. First, it protects your muscle. It provides the actual building blocks, amino acids, that your body needs to maintain lean tissue while you're in a deficit. You're essentially telling your body through both training and nutrition, keep this muscle, it's being used, it's earning its place. Second, protein helps with satiety. It keeps you fuller for longer compared to the same number of calories from carbohydrates or fat. And that matters enormously when you're trying to eat less. Hunger is one of the biggest reasons people abandon their diets. A diet you can actually follow is a diet that works. It sounds obvious, but it's easy to overlook. The best plan in the world means nothing if you can't stick to it. Third, protein gives your diet structure. When you build your meals around a solid protein source, the rest of the diet tends to organize itself naturally. Your calories fall into place, your food choices become more deliberate, and consistency becomes a lot more achievable. This brings us to what a real diet actually looks like. It's not complicated. Enough protein, enough vegetables, controlled calories, simple meals, and foods you can repeat for months without getting burned out on them. That's it. There's no secret formula beyond those fundamentals. The best diet isn't the one you can white-knuckle your way through for 10 days. It's the one you can actually live with for weeks, months, and beyond. Sustainability isn't a nice-to-have, it's the whole point. And finally, it's worth being clear on the distinction between weight loss and fat loss. They sound the same, but they're not. Weight loss just means the number on the scale goes down. That could be water, muscle, or fat. Fat loss specifically means you're losing body fat while preserving, or even building, lean muscle. That's the goal. And protein, more than almost anything else in your diet, is what makes that possible. Let's talk about the third pillar, resistance training. And the best way to understand why it matters is with a simple idea. Resistance training sends a signal to your body that says, this muscle is needed. Keep it. Now, a lot of people focus heavily on cardio when they're trying to change their body composition. And cardio absolutely has value. It burns calories, it improves cardiovascular health, it supports overall well-being. There's nothing wrong with it. But here's the key distinction. Cardio does not tell your body to hold on to muscle. It increases energy expenditure. That's it. It doesn't send a preservation signal to your muscle tissue. Resistance training does something fundamentally different. When you challenge your muscles, when you push them, load them, make them work against resistance, your body receives a very clear message. This tissue is being used. This tissue is necessary. Protect it. And that changes everything when you're in a caloric deficit. Because here's the thing about being in a deficit. Your body is in a state where it's looking for places to pull energy from. And without a strong enough signal telling it to maintain muscle, it will happily break that muscle down and use it for fuel. Resistance training is how you prevent that. It's how you make fat loss rather than just weight loss the dominant outcome. And the good news is, you don't need anything fancy to make this work. Weights, machines, resistance bands, body weight movements. All of these can deliver the stimulus your muscles need. The specific tool matters far less than the principle behind it. You're creating mechanical tension on the muscle. You're forcing an adaptation. That's the signal. That's what you're after. So what is the actual goal of training during a body recomposition phase? It's not primarily to burn calories. That's a side effect. The real goal is to preserve, and ideally build, the tissue that gives your body its shape. Because there's a big difference between just getting smaller and actually transforming what your body looks like. Think about it this way. A smaller waist is a good outcome. Nobody would argue with that. But a smaller waist combined with stronger, more developed shoulders, a broader back, a fuller chest, stronger legs, that is a completely different body. That's not just less of what you had before. That's a restructured physique. And the only way to get there is to give your body a reason to hold on to and develop that muscle while you're losing fat. This is also why the framing of weight loss versus fat loss is so important. The number on the scale does not tell the whole story. Two people can lose the same amount of weight and end up with very different bodies, depending on how much of that weight was fat versus muscle. Resistance training is what tips that equation in your favor. It's what makes the deficit work for you, not against you. Progressive overload. It's one of the most important concepts in training, and also one of the most misunderstood. A lot of people hear the word overload and think it means pushing yourself to the absolute limit every single session, grinding, suffering, leaving nothing in the tank. But that's not what it means. Training needs direction, not destruction. The goal isn't to wreck yourself. The goal is to make sure that something, over time, is improving. So what does progressive overload actually look like in practice? There are several ways it can show up, and they're all valid depending on where you are in your training. The most obvious one is more reps. You're using the same weight you used last week, but this time you get 3 extra reps. That's progress. Your body handled more total work than it did before. That counts. Then there's more weight. As your body adapts to a given load, you can start adding to the bar or increasing the resistance. This is the version most people are familiar with. Heavier loads over time as your strength and capacity grow. But here's one that doesn't get talked about enough. Better technique. Cleaner execution with fewer compensations. You might be lifting the exact same weight for the exact same number of reps. But if your movement has become more precise, more controlled, with less energy wasted on unnecessary compensations, that is a form of progress. Don't underestimate it. Along those same lines, there's better control. This is about slowing things down, using a slower tempo, really feeling the muscle work, making each contraction intentional rather than just swinging weight around. Same load, same reps, but your nervous system is doing a better job of managing the movement. That's an adaptation. There's also better range of motion, going deeper, moving through a fuller range on each rep. If your squat is gradually getting lower, if your shoulder press is reaching a more complete overhead position, that's your body becoming more capable. That's progress. And finally, there's something that's easy to overlook. Same work, less effort. You're hitting the same numbers, but your recovery between sets is cleaner. You're less winded, your heart rate comes back down faster. The same output is costing your body less. That is your fitness improving. That counts as overload because it means you now have the capacity to do more if you choose to push further. Now, there's an important distinction at the bottom of this slide, and it matters a lot. Weight loss versus fat loss. These are not the same thing. If your body weight is dropping but your lifts are collapsing, you're losing strength, your performance is falling apart. That's a sign your calorie deficit is too aggressive. You're likely losing muscle along with fat, and that's not the outcome you want. On the other hand, if your waist is shrinking and your strength is holding, or even improving, then you're doing it right. You're losing fat while preserving or building muscle, and that combination is what actually changes body composition in a meaningful, lasting way. Progressive overload, in any of its forms, is what keeps your training moving forward. It's the difference between just exercising and actually training with purpose. One of the biggest mistakes people make when tracking their progress is relying on a single number, usually the scale. But body weight alone is one of the noisiest, most misleading data points you can use. What you really want is a constellation of markers, so that when some of them move in the right direction, you know something real is happening, even if the scale is being stubborn that day. Let's go through each one. First, weekly average weight. This is not about what the scale says on Monday versus Tuesday. That comparison is meaningless. Your weight can swing 2, 3, even 4 pounds in a single day based on water retention, food volume, sleep, and stress. What you want to track is the average weight across the full week, and then compare that average to the previous week's average. That's a signal. A single daily reading is just noise. Second, waist measurement. Grab a tape measure, use the same one every time, measure the same spot every time, typically around the navel, and do it at the same time of day, ideally in the morning before eating. Waist circumference is one of the most reliable indicators that you're actually losing fat, especially visceral fat. If your waist is going down over time, something good is happening, regardless of what the scale says. Third, progress photos. Take them every 2 to 4 weeks. Use the same lighting, the same pose, the same location. The reason you space them out is because changes in body composition happen slowly. If you compare photos taken 1 week apart, you'll see almost nothing. But compare 4 weeks to 8 weeks, and suddenly the difference becomes visible. Photos capture changes that neither the scale nor the tape measure can fully communicate. Things like muscle definition, posture, and the overall shape of your body. Fourth, clothing fit. This one is underrated and deeply honest. Belt notches don't lie. If a t-shirt that used to be tight across the belly now fits differently, that's real feedback. You don't need a number. You just need to pay attention. Check in daily and be honest with yourself. Fifth, your training log. Are your lifts stable? Are they improving? Or are they collapsing? This matters enormously. When you're in a caloric deficit, maintaining strength is one of the key indicators that you're preserving muscle while losing fat. If your performance is holding steady or even going up slightly, that's a great sign. If your lifts are cratering week after week, something is wrong. Your deficit might be too aggressive, your recovery is suffering, or you're simply not eating enough protein. And sixth, and this one is simple but important, ask yourself, can I continue? A plan that destroys you in 2 weeks is not a plan. Sustainability is the whole game. Recomposition, losing fat while maintaining or building muscle, is inherently slower than crash dieting. You will not see dramatic drops on the scale every week, but what you will see if you're patient and consistent is a result you can actually keep. Not weight you'll regain the moment you stop, but a genuinely different body composition that holds over time. So when you're evaluating your progress, zoom out. If most of your markers are trending in the right direction, waist shrinking, photos improving, lifts holding, clothes fitting better, then a flat week on the scale is not a failure, it's just noise. Trust the full picture, not a single data point. One of the most common mistakes people make when they're trying to get healthier is asking the wrong question. They step on the scale, see a number, and immediately judge their entire week based on that one data point. But the scale tells you almost nothing useful on its own. So let's talk about how to ask better questions, because the quality of your questions determines the quality of your progress. Instead of only asking, how much weight did I lose? Start asking a whole set of more meaningful questions. First, did I lose fat or just weight? This is a critical distinction. Your body weight is made up of fat, muscle, water, bone, and organ tissue. When the scale drops, you have no idea what you actually lost. You could have lost water weight from eating less sodium. You could have lost muscle because you weren't eating enough protein. You might have even lost a combination of fat and muscle simultaneously, which would show up as a good number on the scale, but actually be a step backward in terms of your body composition and long-term metabolism. Second, did I keep my muscle? Muscle is metabolically expensive. Your body burns more calories just to maintain it. Muscle also gives you that toned, defined look that most people are actually after. If your diet is too aggressive, if you're not strength training, or if you're not eating enough protein, your body will start burning muscle for fuel. The number on the scale might go down, but you're losing exactly what you want to keep. Third, is my waist smaller? This is one of the best physical indicators of fat loss, specifically the kind of fat that matters most for your health. Visceral fat, the fat stored around your midsection and your organs, is the most dangerous kind. A shrinking waist measurement is a much more meaningful signal than a dropping scale number, because it tells you that you're losing fat in a place where it actually impacts your health and appearance. Fourth, is my strength stable or improving? Your performance in the gym is one of the most reliable indicators that your diet and training are working together properly. If you're losing weight but your lifts are going up, or at least staying the same, that's a strong sign that you're losing fat and preserving muscle. If your strength is dropping week over week, that's a red flag that something is off, whether it's calories, protein, sleep, or recovery. Fifth, do I actually look better in photos? This one might sound superficial, but it's genuinely one of the most honest feedback tools available to you. Progress photos capture changes that the scale completely misses. You might weigh the same as you did a month ago, but look noticeably leaner and more defined because you gained muscle while losing fat, a process called body recomposition. The camera doesn't lie in the way the scale does. And sixth, can I repeat this plan next week? Sustainability is everything. A diet that you can only follow for 3 days before breaking down isn't a diet. It's a crash. If your approach is so restrictive that you dread Monday morning, it's not going to work long term. The best plan is one that you can actually stick to, one that fits into your life, your schedule, and your social world without making you miserable. And that brings us to the core message of this entire slide. The real goal isn't weight loss, it's fat loss with muscle retention. Those are two very different outcomes, and only one of them actually gives you the body, the health, and the energy you're looking for. When you start asking better questions, you start making better decisions, and you stop chasing a number that was never the right target in the first place.